When sequels come along, we often can worry about games changing, especially as smaller franchises become more mainstream. We many times see them fold into predictable industry standards and gameplay mechanics. This is something I call the streamlining of games. But what is streamlining and what does it mean for gaming? Now, when we talk about streamlining, what we mean is homogenization. Essentially, it's making a game more generalized, usually to appeal to a larger audience. Now, business-wise, this makes sense, as the more people you can market your game to, the more will likely buy it. But does it also mean that games are sacrificing integrity to do so? Case in point, let's look at the Elder Scrolls series, the latest three mostly. This because not nearly as many people played the oldest games, which is kind of a shame. These were very interesting and ambitious games, especially for their time. While Arena was interesting enough, Daggerfall was truly impressive in scope. If you're at all interested in the history of RPGs, I highly recommend trying it out sometime. Or watch a Let's Play. Might be easier. Either way, getting back on topic, let's start with Morrowind. There's a popular picture poking fun at the quests in the Elder Scrolls and how each installment in the series would handle it. And while it is exaggerated, it still has some truth to it. When it comes to Morrowind, the game doesn't hold your hand. You had to follow signs and really look around for things. The game wouldn't always tell you exactly where something was or who someone was. This meant a bit of detective work, searching for clues and exploring, discovering things in the wild. It also had flavor in everything. The dialogues were always full of text, and even the quest instructions had a certain charm built into them. Skyrim less so, hence the picture. But that might be a bit unfair to Skyrim. Skyrim is a lot more generalized in that it appeals to a larger audience, but that detracts from some of the more, for lack of a better word, more hardcore aspects the game could have. And this makes sense, because a lot of people have less time than hardcore gamers, so having to do the added detective work, walking between each town, and reading large swaths of text just adds a lot of time to the gaming experience. This time, many would argue, builds atmosphere and makes you feel much more accomplished when you solve something. For example, if you found out through a found scroll where a certain tomb was by following riddles and unlocking the hidden door without any help, you'd feel pretty good. If you were shown where the tomb was and told how to unlock the hidden door, you'd probably feel a lot less accomplished. But to be fair, the first method would take a lot more time. Time many people don't have anymore. And that's a fair argument. After all, Skyrim sold an unprecedented amount of copies, and is still widely played to this day. But while we're on the subject of quest markers, Skyrims are what many games have now. It points both in-game and on the map exactly to where the next objective is, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Look at the way The Witcher 3 did it. They had a general area. Then you had to use your own skills to figure out where within that area the objective was. It was a great compromise, lowering the amount of time it took, while still feeling as though you'd actually accomplished something yourself. The arrow directly to objectives isn't exactly new. It's been being employed by games for a long time, especially first-person shooter games. And it's not like they're introducing something really hurtful into the industry. In Skyrim's defense, the graphics are better, the gameplay is smooth and still good, and the world is still fun to explore. It's a fine game. It just felt a bit more shallow, I guess. But there are also a lot of positives generalizing a game gives. It appeals to a greater audience, which means more sales and more revenue. And that could lead to bigger and better games in the future. Not just that, but the game is easier to beat, so more people will be able to relate to the overall story. And as an RPG, it brings more people into the genre. While gaming is now huge, and most people are playing or at the very least exposed to gaming directly in some way, RPGs are still one of the more fringe genres in gaming. And this isn't just limited to the Elder Scrolls, RPGs, or even just gaming. It happens everywhere, especially as more money comes into the equation. And I'm not picking on the Elder Scrolls only. This has happened all throughout gaming history. When Call of Duty 4 came out, we saw a whole genre of FPSs really begin to homogenize after that into Call of Duty-esque games. Same with creation games and Minecraft, MOBAs with League of Legends, and right now we're seeing it with Fortnite and Battle Royales. The industry, series, movies, things homogenize to try and follow a current trend. and to try and cash in on the success of that current trend. And it's easy to blame what many call casual gamers for this, but in reality, most gamers are casual gamers. Just as most people into the Marvel movies are casual Marvel fans. They're not buying a lot of comics or delving deep into the lore. They just enjoy it for what it is. And I think that's where games are headed, but also not. Nowadays, larger games are usually generalized, while it's actually indie or smaller games that are building these more hardcore elements into their games. So at the end of the day, does it really matter? Well, not really. There's enough games where if you want to go into the detail you want, you can. Especially with mods and with so many customizable options in games these days, you can usually play most games exactly the way you want to. And having those options in games is a good thing. More options means more ways to play, and more power to the players. Maybe a game or two can feel a little more shallow than I'd like, but as long as I'm enjoying it, that's all that matters to me. We've come a long way from not being able to have the detail we want in RPGs to being able to have too much that it actually intimidates people. And at the end of the day, more people playing a game and series you love means more people you can share that love and passion with. And that is a great thing for gaming.